If you hear my breathing, yes, you probably should.
Please welcome our panelists. Please take your seat here. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to SMK and company from the Netherlands, Mako, common discussion and common event about artificial intelligence. And we have a panel discussion here today and talking about benefits will give us and what we will face and how we will live in the future. So there's a lot of what to discuss, and the area is so unexplored for everybody, and so this is our initial point to start discussion. Also, I would like to mention that today we had a very important event here in SMK, signing a bilateral agreement with the company Mako here, and this establishes common cooperation between SMK and this very profound business institution. So I'm very glad to welcome our panelists here, and my colleague today will be Dovydas, who is a very prominent Lithuanian singer and actor, winner of X Factor in Lithuania last year. But what I recently found out that he's a very passionate about science, and he knows so much about artificial intelligence and physics and astrophysics, and so he prepared for this discussion a lot of very deeply going questions. So Dovydas will start discussion and I will follow up and he will present our panelists.
Okay.
So please.
Okay. Thank you for a brilliant introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dovydas. Like one wise man said, when I said that I'm a passionate person for sciences, he said, you probably know everything about neuroscience and about artificial intelligence. You don't have to study it. So tonight, this evening, we have with us in this discussion Sanne Menning, PhD in neuroscience and data scientist at Mako, Netherlands. We also have Jogunda Sarmaitis. He's a PhD in theoretical physics, and he's also a founder of one of the founders of company Oxpit, and he's applying artificial intelligence in science, in medicine. And we have with us Darius Amilevičius, yeah, that's correct, associate professor in Vytauto Didžiojo University. So I will start this discussion with an interesting question, not that deep, but Sanne, that's a question for you. Could you make clear for the audience what kind of artificial intelligence categories there are, where we are heading with the research and development, and what kind and when we are expecting a breakthrough?
So we had an hour, right? Because that is a lot.
Yeah, that's probably a question for a whole hour.
Yeah. So I just gave a talk this morning at Build Stuff about AI and, the different types of AI that we distinguish. So narrow AI, which is just basically what we see around us, performing just one task, and part of that is machine learning. There's general AI where, the AI learns one task and then can transfer or at least partially transfer that intelligence to learning other tasks, and that is how we learn. And then there's strong AI, and we see that in like Westworld and a lot of other movies and television shows with these conscious AI taking over the world with some scary stuff going on. So that's like theoretically the different types of AI. If I look at my work, it is all very business oriented. So I started out in neuroscience, and now I apply my knowledge of math and statistics to solve business problems, build recommender systems, do predictive maintenance analysis, that kind of stuff. And then where we're heading, that was it.
So, thank you for the introduction. So, I would like to ask you a question about artificial intelligence breakthrough. Okay, so At the moment, we're at the early stage of development. It's quite an early stage because general public do believe that soon we will have an artificial intelligence that is walking among us, and we cannot separate them from human beings. But the actual development is at the pretty early stage. I know that machine learning recently, AlphaGo Zero beat the AlphaGo champion, beat the Go champion of the world, and that was a recent breakthrough. But how about breakthroughs that really impact our world, and we will see changes at our daily life?
Yeah.
When should we expect a breakthrough?
I think that is ironically very hard to predict. I think as soon as quantum computing goes to the next level, that is probably going to be a big step. But besides that, AI has been around for a long time, and the first systems were developed 60, 70 years ago. Where are we at now? And I think we're still at the part where, as AlphaGo Zero, it taught itself to outperform a human, but it's still only one task. And the real breakthrough, when to expect that, I wouldn't be able to say.
So that's the category of a narrow intelligence, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so narrow intelligence and machine learning. And when could we expect a breakthrough in general intelligence?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
A computer that could perform a task or solve a problem that is quite general, that you could give an answer, that you could give a problem to it, and it could research many subfields, and it could come up with information in those fields and give you an answer. So we're quite far away from it.
I believe so. We feel with our voice assistants that we actually have some smart stuff in our phone, right? But actually what they do is just look at what's the most likely question you're asking, and they come up with an answer. So during my talk this morning, I wanted to demonstrate that Siri wouldn't be able to ask my question, and what I wanted to know is, where should I go for drinks afterwards? And one of the responses I got, that you get these results that they find online, and it was how to attend a conference sober. I wanted to go somewhere for drinks. I don't want to stay sober. So it really doesn't understand the questions. And yeah, I believe we're quite far away, but maybe some of the others have.
Maybe I can address the professor from University, Darius Amilarichis. I've just recently heard in many conferences that our future depends on human-machine interaction. Actually, our future depends on it. How do you think we should prepare for this? Because here in the audience, we have a lot of youth, the persons who are not so much involved in the informatics science, and maybe for them, this area of artificial intelligence is quite new one. So how they should prepare for this, and how this future will depend on this interaction between human and machine?
First of all, I think that we are not prepared for this. First of all, you are prepared to communicate with entity who has no sense, emotions? It's very difficult to communicate for us. We are not prepared for this. But from the other side, we are beginning to prepare for this moment. There's research papers on ethical questions of artificial intelligence grew up from 2017. So I think that beginning from 2017, the artificial intelligence is no more question of technicians only. It became social event. So we are beginning to prepare for this.
There's a lot of movies and a lot of series, even of Westworld that Senna mentioned, amazing series in Netflix, depicts an dystopical world with artificial intelligence, because there's a common sense to fear of something, to be afraid of something that you cannot control. And if you create an entity that can improve itself with the for example, many scientists think that when we create general intelligence, it will be able to create another general intelligence, and then we will see the upgrade of the code and exponential growth, and that is called singularity, I think. Yeah. So how do you stop and how do you implement some sort of how do you create some sort of way to control it? If you think that you can just unplug the computer, as like we can do with our laptops, for example, but when you're dealing with a intelligence entity which has an intelligence much greater than you, because you can imagine one thing. Oh, I'm sorry for a long speech, but you can imagine a thing. If you give a question to an intelligent computer, and he answers you in 10 seconds, he can actually do the logical work of like 10,000 years with the speed of its processing, while you have, for example, those 10 seconds to answer a question. So when you have a very, very intelligent entity, how do you control it and how do you interact it? So the professor said that we are not quite capable to comprehend this phenomena, and that we are not really prepared for it. So
do you have a question?
Yeah, so I have a question. So
can I comment on that?
Yes, of course you can comment. You haven't spoken yet.
Good. So I will be the boring voice or the voice of reason, depending on how you interpret this. So I think that it's very exciting to talk about these new things, saying that maybe the general artificial intelligence is just around the corner. But my understanding is, and from the way things are moving at the moment, it seems to me that it's behind a very big corner, and it's probably like hundreds of years away, most likely, or at least I don't think that we can say anything intelligent about the timeframes when such a thing would evolve. So one argument which is worthwhile to think about, in my opinion, is, see, the Moore's law, which means that, which says or posits that the number of elements in a microprocessor chip increases very fast. So this law is basically hitting its boundaries now, because our smallest elements in the microchips are just a couple of atoms, which means that going further will require a completely different technology. So since this revival of artificial intelligence, which happened since 2008 or so, has been based on the increasing computing power of computers, it's hard to say how the exponential growth when it comes to AI could continue with this physical barrier in its way. So that's why I'm slightly more conservative, and I would talk about narrow AI and how it changes lives of people, instead of addressing very interesting questions of ethics already now, because I think these are extremely interesting questions, but there are a lot of more pressing questions with respect to how narrow AI will be applied, what will it do to our workforce, and how to prepare for it, basically.
So let's address this question, which you started addressing. So there's a lot of talks going on in Europe and worldwide about how robots or AI will take our jobs, and there's some trends and research shows that about 700 million jobs will be taken until 2030. Yeah. So what do you think? What kind of a tendencies in the job market will appear, and what jobs will be taken by AI, and what new jobs will arise because of AI? Can you answer this
I think
question?
that's a very interesting question. And I think that what's going to happen is going to depend a lot on the rate of change. So how fast things change. So I'm saying this because we have seen many similar revolutions before. So for example, in the beginning of the 20th century, around 90% of people in the United States were working in farms. So they were farmers growing stuff out in the country, and now it's only a couple of percent. So it has been a 100-year-long revolution during which people moved from farms to cities. In this time frame, all of these people had to change their professions completely. So the distribution in the job market changed a lot, and they had to be re-educated. Often these were not the same people, so it was not the farmer who became the clerk in the bank, but it was the children of the farmer, for example, who didn't inherit the farm anymore, but they went on to completely different jobs. So I think that it's important to try to research and try to understand how fast will the things change. And if they don't change fast enough, then it's very good. This means that we have time to adapt. This means that we don't have to worry too much. And this means that people are going to be able to re-educate themselves. On the other hand, if it's going to be extremely rapid, then this means that our governments have to think about it and have to come up with programs that would help people adapt to this rapid change.
Mm-hmm. Sane, I think that important aspect is business AI. How, because your company is developing solutions for the business, and could you answer this question about how AI could be used in the business market, and especially in business solutions? And maybe you could give some examples of the projects you are working on in this field in your company.
Yeah, so we are working on a lot of different things in different companies. So for example, for a bank, we've been working on their online data, so their website and the behavior that people take across the website to optimize the journey, to see what they actually find relevant content and to put that forward a bit more. I'm also working at a flower breeding company, and I'm building a solution there to help them predict their production outcome. Yeah, so we're working on like this kind of operational projects, and a lot is aimed at marketing and sales, and I think that is the field that is most profound at the moment. You know, helping marketeers find those leads that are most relevant for your company, aiding your salespeople, you know, giving them information about potential clients and you know, the kind of products that will be relevant to those clients. So yeah, for one company, we used external data, combined that with CRM data, and we helped them build a solution that would automatically send out emails at the relevant time for their customers and with a relevant product offer. So yeah, that's the kind of things we are working on.
And what do you think? Will there be a lot of companies in the future that applies data science centers and artificial intelligence in innovating the field they're in? Whether it be an exponential increase in companies that use this technology and artificial intelligence?
Definitely,
yeah.
I think a lot of the, like what you see at Microsoft, at Amazon, you know, they are providing us with like standard solutions that we can use. So if you want to do image recognition, you can just use online services and, you know, incorporate them in your business processes. But also there are templates to do predictive maintenance analyses, recommender systems if you look at online shops. So yeah, it's becoming more readily available. I do think that with these standard solutions, you know, we're talking about different kinds of data, statistics, so these standard solutions might bring you up to a certain level. And the companies that have been working on AI for the last years, they are really way ahead, and I'm not sure if the other companies will ever catch up.
Yeah, I do think so also. So, okay, so what do you think about what we have a next question? I just wanted to ask about the creative side, about jobs that involve creative side. So people do think that robots will never change humans that work in creative fields, but we actually see examples like robots composing operas,
or
music, or
drawing pictures,
or drawing paintings, or mimicking the styles of Picasso, Dali, and
but then are those really original because they use the previous data, right? So there's this example of a new Rembrandt being painted, and it is based on the pattern that's being found in the previous Rembrandts. So is it truly original?
But are we truly original? Because we are actually machines that gather information and try to symbiotically.
As well.
Yeah, we just take information and we try to collide.
That's how creative actually mind works, because it's associating different, you know,
different information and trying to compose something new. Yeah.
That's the same way how AI.
So actually, I
Well,
have
you could call AI creative, but you probably know more about that in the NLP field, you know, with AI creating its own languages.
The first book written by a computer was in 70s, if I'm not mistaken. The policeman have or bear something like this. Very interesting book. I think that maybe technologies of third wave maybe be prepared to create something. For now, it is impossible.
I've heard about the third, not only third, but fourth wave of
Fourth wave will be super intelligence.
Okay, could you explain the technologies of third wave, first wave, second wave,
for the
and
general
fourth wave?
audience?
So, first wave was mostly handwritten rules. Second wave we have now. Deep learning, machine learning. So, in the first wave, handwritten rules permitted more generalized, better generalized, but it was very difficult to write hand coding rules good. Second wave, we have deep learning, machine learning, but now systems cannot generalize much. Third wave, this is something new.
Is perception
We have
AI?
no big idea what will be, but we hope
So we aren't at the third
yes,
stage.
about 2022, 25.
So that's the
insane.
guesstimate.
Yes,
When we arrive
maybe.
there.
And maybe in this that way we will have systems that will generalize better. So this will be the step toward the creativity. And fourth wave will be super intelligence.
Oh yeah, super intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah. Machine that.
If I'm not mistaken.
Do you know about those technological waves? Something about it? Yeah, you.
Yeah, I just had no idea that the third wave was going to be here in 2022.
That's a good guesstimate. Okay, we
I guess
have
my
to back
model
up.
wasn't that accurate.
Yeah, we have
I
to. back
think
up.
there's different classification of those waves because I have read about another one, but which classifies to fourth waves, but maybe there's some different classifications. But for the general audience, I think it's very important to know how it really affects their lives. You know, when we're talking about waves, and this is theoretical approach, but every one of you, could you just give some kind of example how AI will affect everyday life of every one of us in nearest future? What would be the main features which we will face by AI?
But these technologies now are affecting our life.
You mean cell phones? You mean
Like Siri,
smartwatches?
Alexa, or
This is call it artificial intelligence effect. When we are creating new technology, all are talking. When we will create the technology, artificial intelligence will be created. And how we have these technologies created, no one believes that this is. For example, playing chess.
Yeah, that's an example of narrow artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Now we have systems that play good chess.
Yeah.
But we are not considering that this is artificial intelligence, smartphones, etc., etc.
but those more advanced technologies like perception AI, because we know all those automatic robots or Siri, Alexa, they are already existing. But this new wave of perception AI, how it will affect everyday life of every person?
Okay, so let's think about theoretical situation. Tomorrow, some big newspaper writes an article with the headline that general artificial intelligence was just created in China. How does it affect our lives?
We all are Chinese.
I don't know. I am not prepared for this.
It's better it
sorry.
wouldn't be China.
So would we see a fast effect of general artificial intelligence, or would we see a gradual, some sort of integration of general artificial intelligence in our lives? For example, we have smartphones. That's that's like a big size computer in our pockets. Okay, so it's like it's much 1,000 times bigger than the Apollo missions had when they landed on the moon. So okay, so we have a lot of narrow intelligence in our little smartphones, but is it more compelling to have one big computer with a general intelligence, or a lot of small computers with narrow intelligence?
Let's say I'm personally would like to make entrance gradually. I am ready to buy a smartphone, but I'm not prepared to buy a phone with a general intelligence. Yeah. I'm not prepared for this.
I think the phone with the general intelligence would buy you rather than you would buy it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's an interesting movie called Her.
Yes.
About general artificial intelligence integration.
And love.
Very beautiful movie. So,
but it is changing our lives. Like, I have two little girls, and if I look at how they use, like, they will talk to my phone as if it's a person. So can I please watch this video on mommy's phone? And of course, luckily it doesn't work. But this morning I showed them the example of, I have a Google Home, and the only thing they could say was, "Hey Google, play Let It Go." Like, crap, AI is not fun if that's the only command it can understand.
One second, let me get my smartphone. Can I get my smartphone? I will show you something.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And Sana, so I've just heard of one good thought which really resonated to me. And it was said that first we create tools, then tools create us. And that's actually not only about AI or some computer stuff. It's about everything. All the tools which created during the history of the humanity, firstly we create tools, then tools create us.
Yeah.
What do you think will be benefits of AI in this concept? Like, we are creating AI, they will affect us. What will be benefits and what will be threats?
Well, they make our lives easier, right? If you don't have to think about your groceries anymore, but, the fridge will just be full when you get home, that would really benefit me. I would sign up for that.
Yeah.
But, there's also a danger where if we look at movies or the book, The Circle, with one company really owning all the data, knowing everything about you, and you're not able to actually live your own life, that would be a threat. And I try to kind of divide my data amongst all these different larger companies. But yeah, there's a price for the convenience of AI, I think. Yeah.
What did you bring your...
I just wanted to show the power of Google artificial intelligence narrow, but I will try to implement it in our talk. For example, I could have used it at certain stages of this talk, in the beginning, for example, so let's say Moore's law.
According to Wikipedia, Moore's law is the observation that the number of transistors in a dense integrated circuit doubles about every 2 years.
For example, so you can give a certain difficult questions to it. I experimented with Google, and it could get answered. For example, from the music perspective, what is the difference between C major chord and C minor chord?
According to Quora, C major and A minor are relative keys because they share the same key signature, and therefore, the same pitch collection. The basic difference is that they have different tonics.
And there's
According to Chord Bank, C minor...
Okay, and there's a...
Thank you,
okay,
Siri.
thank you.
Siri, you are very clever.
Thank you. Stop
Siri,
now.
stop.
So you're invading my life. Okay, thank you.
So wait, there's a price to pay.
What's the price? Yeah, I think the price to pay is our attention span, because it's lowering every day. So you can give a complex... Okay, where were we?
We were talking about benefits and threats from AI, and Jorgundas could add
so
something.
I like your question very much, because I think that it's the right question to ask. So one fabulous application of AI is how airplanes fly nowadays. So in each airplane, you have still two pilots, but most of the job is actually done by the computer. Mm-hmm. And, well, that's the previous generation of AI. It probably was conceived in the 70s or so. However, the economic impact of that is quite large. So this means that the flights are cheaper. This means that airplanes are much more safe, much less prone to human error. This means that our global economy is much more connected. We can fly cheaply from one place to another, which in turn means that the labor force is much more mobile. And at the end, we are just all richer because of this one invention, which is seemingly so simple and depends on the former generation of AI. So, I mean, I'm very hopeful that with the tools that we are creating today, we can achieve similar effects also at this scale.
Right, I really agree with this. And what I've heard, another good thought that there is a big threat which is mostly exposed by politicians because they tend to threaten us because that's the way how they get
That's the way the politics works. You just try to threaten the person and then to agree with you.
Okay. You know, that's how they manipulate the persons and that's how they get their power. So basically they threat us because that AI will take our jobs and will be huge unemployment. But I think, and I really believe that the jobs, AI will be taken only those which we allow them to take. Actually, they will take only these jobs or those tasks which we will allow them to take it.
As long as we're able to stay in control,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
As long as we're able to control the AI, then, you know, we could design it to do that, just the jobs
and
we
how
don't
to
want
keep
to do.
this control in our minds and in our hands? Do you have any recipe for this?
I don't know. There are companies that say, you know, we don't let the AI rewrite its own code. So that's the way to keep it in control. I don't know. Like, you know, you have to be able to pull the plug somewhere. I think that's the best way to keep in control. But yeah, if we go on to general intelligence and have it, you know, teach itself pretty much everything, I have no idea how to stay in control. I don't know.
Okay, so let's say, what do Jorgundas think about it?
So I think the professor wanted to comment.
Okay.
You want to comment on that? Or,
Brief comment. I don't like this all apocalyptic scenarios about taking away our jobs, but unfortunately, maybe you saw the last experiments of Google when they created with AlphaGo one plane, and that showed that for now, the present technologies of artificial intelligence can be very aggressive.
Okay, so that's a threat. That's a threat. I mean, I just wanted to ask...
Aggressive by themselves or by the way people manage them?
In this point, they are like the human race, where I want to eat, I take the food from other.
When you have a task, you can...
There's always black and white side as in all the life, and there's also, so that's probably the same.
I mean, I think what you want to say is that if you give a task to artificial intelligence, it will try to achieve it in any way possible. I think there was a program that was meant to teach itself to play Tetris, and there's a little game where you stack one block onto another, and it's impossible to beat this game. And when it's got so many blocks that it should lose the game, it just paused the game and didn't pause again. So it actually stopped the game, paused the game, and didn't play anymore. So the aggressiveness and the tendency to achieve one's goal is very well known to human race, because we are very aggressive. So I do think that we could probably create something maybe more aggressive than us.
Or like we.
Yeah, or like we. And I wanted to ask one question. So, okay, so Gabia said that artificial intelligence will take jobs that we allow it to take. But when speaking about big companies, the heads of the companies, CEOs that make decisions about implementing the artificial intelligence, the robots and other robotics in their companies. They make those decisions and they impact a lot of workers that are below them. So if the tendency is to implement artificial intelligence, won't it be that only a few people will make those big decisions, and it will impact the general society in a bad way?
Or in a good way?
Well, yeah, but that's not specific for AI, isn't it? Like, you know, there's always people who make the decisions for others, and we just hope that people are going to be, you know, they have morale and that they're ethical about the decisions they're making. But yeah, that is what happens, and it has happened at every industrial revolution, so this one is not going to be any different.
So we just have to adapt. I have one example. If I have a trucking company and I see that there's a lot of very perspective autonomous driving trucks being created, for example, in Tesla or Volvo or Mercedes, and I just want to implement them in my business, I just take jobs, I just buy them and let them drive autonomously, and I take jobs from the truck drivers that are like 6th or 4th generation drivers, that whole families were truck drivers, and that's I'm just dismissing the moral side of the.
So on the one hand, I would like to meet such a family. That's a very rare heritage.
Oh, I mean not the 6th generation, but the 2nd generation or 3rd.
On the more serious note, I think that's why the democracy works in general, because democracy means that somehow each of the individuals gets represented, whereas on the other hand, on the business side, there is this huge incentive to consolidate, so that kind of pushes against democracy. But what our political systems have resulted in is sets of regulations. So for example, if you now had a big logistics company in Lithuania, and suddenly you decide that these autonomous cars, that's like the best thing ever, and you want to fire all the truckers and just go completely autonomous, I don't think you could do that. You might be able to do that in China, but you would still have to wrangle the political system in a very complicated manner, because there are also people there who are incentivized to provide work for inhabitants of their town or district or so on. So I think that these kind of problems are solved more on the societal level and not on the technological level.
It's just the same example of combine, that replaced, many people in harvesters, so it's just really not an AI problem. It's just kind of a generational problem. So we're happy. We're not saying that, well, let's have the people back in the fields, working harvesting the crops. So, we're happy with the combine. So we'll be happy just, if we don't have to work and just watch YouTube all day, it's fine. It's just, it seems as a problem, but it comes back to the Luddites, of the 17th century, whatever, and then it's a long process. So but I agree with you that it's not an AI problem here, So it's always like a political problem, more like, and getting the votes problem, this type of problem.
One comment. I really want to recommend everyone to read the Daniel Suarez books. So he has written 2 books, Demon and Freedom. He has written a lot of books. I've read a lot of them, but Demon and Freedom are really about using technology to redesign society. So taking back control from the larger companies and redesigning our society. And they are very interesting. It's very realistic. And
I want to jump. I just want to jump on top of that and say that these books that Sunny is talking about, these are books that describe the world, how it would be if all the technologies that we are talking about now, such as drones, AI, if they would work flawlessly. So what would happen if these technologies would have no technological limitations like battery life and so on? What if they worked flawlessly? How our society would change? And it's a fascinating subject, I think.
There's a lot of death in these books.
And maybe
but
this,
people
yeah.
but people kind of stick together and they try to make the best out of this new kind of society, taking back control. And I think that some manage to do it better than others, but it is very interesting to think about, and maybe not take the books too literal, but to give it a thought, what could happen, and to see the dangers, but also see the potential.
So maybe this could solve one of the biggest problem in the world, nationalism. And when AI will become more involved into our politics life and get their rights, maybe this also will change the picture of how the world exists. And there's a lot of what to discuss. But I just wanted to ask one question about, just recently, just today actually, I've just read one article in Wired journal, and the article said how to make, how to teach AI common sense. It's a,
we don't even understand how humans do that.
Yes, it's like, so what do you think about this? Is it possible? Because as I understood from an article, that it's the biggest obstacle actually in the development in AI, because they learn from this deep learning technology layer by layer, but if something is just pattern has changed a little bit, they cannot understand the common sense, which is very natural for the human.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this?
Well, with my background in neuroscience, when I started that, I really believed that I was going to unravel all the secrets of the brain. I was going to understand how that works. And then after a couple of years, I gave up, because it's something we don't understand, and I know a lot of people are working on it, and there's only so much that with the current technologies that we can understand about the brain. And things like morale, reasoning, this kind of stuff, we don't understand how humans do it. So it's with the technology we have at the moment, it's impossible to mimic an AI.
So the threats and the general notion that we should fear general intelligence is not actually based on sufficient evidence, yeah, on actual innovations that are happening now. I mean, we're at the basic level.
Yeah, so I would say not, and maybe it's educationally interesting to give an example. How would you create some narrow AI? So let's say that you want to create an AI which can differentiate cat pictures from dog pictures. So how do you do that? Well, I mean, you have to have a lot of different dog pictures of different dogs, because dogs are, I mean, when you think about it, you just imagine a dog and it's kind of a general dog, but that's not how a computer thinks. Mm-hmm. For a computer, a small tiny dog is a completely different object from a bigger Saint Bernard or some other breed of dog. So this means that in order to make such an algorithm which performs really well, you have to have a vast amount of pictures of dogs, show it to the computer telling this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a dog. It could be pictures from different angles if these are photographs. And then what is the worst is that now you have this algorithm which very accurately can tell a cat from a dog, and then you show a picture of a tiger to this algorithm. And for a human, it's obvious that a tiger is like a cat, right? It's a big, just a big cat. But what this algorithm is going to output, it's anybody's guess, because it has never seen any tigers, so it has no notion that a tiger is similar to a cat.
So let's dive into this. So you showing thousands of pictures of cats and dogs, okay? And how does the neural network recognize it? Does it recognize the shapes and the lines of those pictures and try to compare one picture to another, or how does it? How do you teach it? How does it recognize that it's a cat? Because when you show three cats to a 3-year-old, it will, next time it sees a cat, it knows that's a cat. And don't show it 3 pictures of a cat to computer, because it won't recognize nothing.
Right. So a 3-year-old actually lives in the world. It has other stimuli besides the 3 cat pictures that you showed them, and the computer does not. So that's the biggest difference. So the computer has, well, as Anna said, no common sense, as it has not been immersed into our physical world, from which, as a human, one would gather information. And the way it works on a technical level, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to explain, but the key feature there is if you want to have an algorithm that works well, you have to teach it by example. And you not only have to show the positive example, like this is a cat, but you also have to show all the negative examples that you want the computer to consider. So everything that is not a cat, you should show to it and say, okay, this is, I don't know, a bottle of water that's not a cat. Certainly not a cat. And there are a lot of objects that are not cats in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Gabi,
There's a lot of jobs for those who will be showing the cat
showing the
for
pictures.
AI.
Okay, so how about
Look, even now it's a huge industry actually.
Yeah,
So,
it
okay,
is.
so
Actually,
how-
coders who will.
But not only coders, people labeling pictures, saying, okay, in this picture there is a cat, it's right there, it's a cat, and then in the next picture, okay, there is no cat, and then.
Oh,
and
so those little security questions that you get in some sort of a site, please mark like street sign. Where's the picture of a street sign? And you mark them. So, so there's
that
where
will
the
not-
data
yes.
goes to. Artificial
That's
networks,
right.
yeah.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah. Okay. So Gabi asked about perceptive robots, perceptive AI. So you're telling us that it's not that artificial intelligence that has an electronic picture of a cat is not immersed in our world. So how about immersing it? How about creating a robot that can be perceptive and learn from its environment, for example?
But that's a task of a completely different level, because like some algorithm which gets two-dimensional images and says if it's a cat or not, okay, it's like this is something that we know how to do more or less at the moment. And the robot that moves around, explores the world, understands the world, this is a task which is immensely more difficult. This means that you're almost trying to simulate a brain of some animal. And that is really like orders of magnitude away from what we can do at the moment with computers.
So, Sunny,
Even because now, this training, we have to tell it that it's a cat or a dog. We couldn't just show it pictures. Like, we could show it a bunch of pictures, and it could probably group them together. So it might say, these cats look similar, or this group looks similar, and we will know it's a cat. But maybe it puts in a chihuahua or something because it's small as well. That's the level it can act upon. It cannot interpret. So if we don't tell it that this group are pictures of cats, then it's never going to be able to identify them as cats. So we can send a robot out in the world, but it's not going to tell us what it sees.
Or maybe there's a person that sits with the robot or sits with the information
Yeah, so
and
you have
marks
to
them.
teach it everything. As you teach your kids, you have to teach a robot.
Yeah.
So that's how machine learning is adapted to AI. But what about virtual neural systems? And if they are created, does it make an advancement in AI development, those virtual neural systems? Or this is the same as machine learning, or is a more advanced technology?
If you're just talking about the neural nets that we're using, that's just part of machine learning. Yeah. So we still have to teach it. And that's
Okay.
with the image recognition.
That's
We
now-
use neural nets or deep learning, and it can distinguish the patterns, and we have no idea what the pattern exactly is. But we still have to teach it.
Okay, got it. So we can raise the questions from the
Yeah.
audience because they are sitting, and I see one question, please.
First of all, artificial intelligence makes the human being laziness.
Yeah, probably. I will give you a microphone. Robot can do that at this moment. Boston Robotics can do flips and
But
everything.
not as well as you did.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Hello. Thank you for the chance. First, I have 5 points. Advantages as
One
well.
at a time, probably. I'm not
It's
AI.
very short of one, but answer will be more. First of all, disadvantage of artificial intelligence. It makes really laziness and patience of waiting like a normal person. Like if I am waiting for a flight, And if I'm going for a checking, without artificial intelligence, I need to wait for 5 hours or even 10 hours or something like that. So here, because of this, in our general daily lives, artificial intelligence makes us, reduces the patience. So second one.
Is the question, do I understand it correctly? Does artificial intelligence save our time?
Save our time in one way, but
lazy?
it makes us laziness.
Make us lazy.
Makes us lazy. For example,
I hope not. Like, I'm hoping that, by saving time on this repetitive, automated task,
Yes.
it will leave time for, the more interesting stuff.
So if you,
I don't have to go
for
grocery
example,
shopping anymore, so I can take an extra course or, like, work on something interesting.
For example,
No, I hope that's not going to be the replacement.
for example, if you are standing in a bus stand and the bus is late for 5 minutes because of some traffic, what will be your emotions?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, most people will take their phone, but, I don't think that should be, by definition, that's not a bad thing, is it? Depends on what you do. We probably are less patient, but we could also use that time to learn more stuff, get more work done.
So still it's not a solvable problem.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person and how we use it, yeah.
And recently the Sophia, artificial intelligence, why it's not happened in a democratic country? Still the implementation happened in a king-ruled country. Why? Because technologically United States are well developed in technology, even in Europe, even China, but the implementation of the Sophia, and they gave a citizenship for this robot.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think that you should consider Sophia more as an art project than as an AI project. It's not really using any extremely sophisticated technology. It looks very good. It transmits some messages which sound very deep. So I think that you should consider more it to be like a modern art project.
As I understand, yesterday I had a talk with my friend, and he told he went to see Sophia, and they were talking about it can dance, it can sing, and it can do almost like a human being, except our emotional feeling. So what is the difference between the Sophia?
But it doesn't really have these emotions. And if you look at the interviews that are being, questions are being asked, and she can give like general answers, but sometimes the answer just doesn't match the question. So I don't think it's that sophisticated.
It can dance. But
No,
show me a dancing robot. Show me a dancing Sophia.
Wait for a few years.
So you're positive about it, yeah?
Yeah.
You think that the development will...
Yeah, soon, very faster than we expecting. So recently about scientist Stephen Hawking, he recently passed, but he told about we should not communicate with the, NASA, aerospace administrative, all this, like NASA and like in India it's ISRO, like we should not communicate with the aliens. But stop communicating with the alien because they can destroy the earth. Like Stephen Hawking was said, he is a scientist.
Yeah.
But artificial intelligence are already developed, but it's implemented in secretly. But it's not open for the public. Is it true or not?
So what is your question exactly?
Like artificial intelligence are much far than what we are talking now. Like we are saying like artificial implementation of...
implemented secretly is much more advanced than one would...
Oh.
Yeah. It's implemented secretly. The process of implementation is going on secretly, not for the public.
So...
It's like we're just playing kindergarten here, and the real stuff is being done somewhere by someone else.
Yeah,
In
so
area
like the Daniel Suarez influx book, right? The Bureau of Technological, what's it called? Where they kind of, they take away all the technology. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it is something we don't see. Well, there are also people who think that Earth is not going to be good enough for AI. They are going to discover how to travel around space, and they will find so many more resources that they can actually use because they're so much smarter than we are. So they won't only take over the world, they will take over the universe. And
they will take over the universe, but they will not leave the people to live happily.
So it's a dystopia. So dystopia it is. Okay.
And about, we are talking about cat and a tiger. Like when if there is a one big cattle farm, like if we, to really want to take care of 100 cattle, we need to look around 5 to 10 people, nearly 10 to 20 people in a general. If the artificial improvement of technology, we can just take a photo and we can look at how many cats are good, or any other dogs came into the cat